Guys, welcome to Scaling Like a Boss, your number one source for scaling your business to 7 figures and beyond. So this is our inaugural podcast episode. I'm filming it with my business partner, Gregory and Dustin, and in a moment, I'm going to introduce him. So honestly, we've actually filmed a couple episodes already, and I'm really excited to share those. But first, before we start sharing them, we thought we'd do an episode where both of us sat down together. We can tell you our stories, where we're coming from, why we're even doing this podcast in the first place, and what it's all about and why you might want to listen along. So we're just going to jump right in. Like I said earlier, this is Gregory. He's my business partner. We have worked together for about 8 years. And in that time, we've had the privilege of building from the ground up, essentially, and scaling a multi-7-figure business. And then we had the opportunity to sell it to a publicly traded group, and we've gone on to found other businesses. We're also partnered in a university and an orphanage and some other things where we've worked together. So we wanted to build a podcast where we could take everything we've learned and all of the connections that we have, the amazing people that we get to talk to on a daily basis, and really share some strategies and tried and true methods for scaling your business. I'll just start first, and then if it's okay, I'll turn over to you, Gregory. So
perfect.
About 8 years ago, I was in between businesses. I had previously had a very successful e-commerce business that mostly out of, I would say, depression, I crashed into the ground. There was nothing wrong with the business. In fact, I could probably start it up again today and it would be just as successful, but I was sick and tired of doing everything myself. I was tired of low quality work. I was tired of some of the drama that came with some of the people I'd hired, and I was just done with the business. So I basically just walked away. And in between businesses, as an entrepreneur, my self-worth, we'll say, was really tied to my net worth. I was really invested in how much money I was making, and I felt like that was the value I brought. And so it was a really dark period of just sadness for me. And in that time, I was trying to launch another business, and I was spending all of my savings. And it got so bad that actually people from my church donated money. It's the only time in my life I've ever taken money from somebody else, but people from my church donated money so that I could have Christmas with my family. And it was extremely humbling. I was so committed to what I was doing, though, that I knew I really needed to, I really needed to be successful as an entrepreneur. My wife, she signed me up to go back to school to become a high school teacher, because she was like, this guy just needs to make money again, which was really funny to me, because like JOB is a 4-letter word in our family. So, but that was what she was just so desperate. And so finally, out of desperation, she said, look, I'm going to give you 30 days. If you can't replace your income in 30 days, you're done, go find a job. And I agreed, because I could see where she was at. She doesn't normally make demands like that. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And I had an idea of what I was working on. I'd been working on it for a while, and I enlisted a bunch of help, and I got a prototype that was making not very much money, but it was making enough money that my wife gave me another 30 days. And in that time, I had gone through the experience of hiring and firing several people and basically spending all of our savings. And, and I got scammed several different ways. People stole my ideas. All sorts of crazy things happened. Anyhow, I knew that my idea was great. And I was just at the point where I could see that the numbers were going up, but nobody was paying out for another 90 to 180 days. And I didn't know how I was going to survive that long. And so, and I was already working 18-hour days. And so my wife said to me, you need to go talk to this friend of ours. It was a guy I barely knew. I'd had like 2 or 3 conversations with him, but she's like, he's really good at business and he's really good at scaling businesses. So you need to go talk to him. And so I was like, okay, I'll go talk to this guy. And I mean, what can I lose? If I don't, I'm going to have to go get a JOB. And that's like failure for an entrepreneur. That's like the worst of the worst, at least for me personally. So I went and talked to this guy, and he was like, wow, what you're doing is really cool. His wife hated the idea, but he liked it. And that guy was Gregory Van Duyse. So he liked what I was doing enough. He said, hey, let me be your business partner. And I'll float enough cash into the business to keep it running for that next 180 days until the money that's owed actually shows up. And so that's how me and Gregory became partners. And I was just doing a little research. One of our managers needed the numbers for something, and it looks like we hit the 7-figure mark. I want to say it was about 15 months together. We started hitting 7 figures, 14, 15 month mark. We went from me taking money from my church for food, not taking it, but being given money, to 7 figures. I'm sure people in my church thought I was a scammer or something. Like, people don't see that because they don't see all the years of work behind it, right? They don't see all the pressure that was building to that uptick. But since then, you know, we've had an amazing journey. And I know before that, Gregory was a strong entrepreneur in his own right. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Gregory. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your history, what you've done, and then I have some questions that I want to ask you.
Okay, sounds good. Well, my name is Gregory Van Duyse. I'm Dustin's business partner for the last 8 years. Like you said, we've done really well. You know, the first time I started a business was 1999. I had bought this internet book and I started my first website, and I tried to sell golf clubs online. And in 1999, it's not something that was very popular and it didn't go well. So I also did, like, I got a few jobs, and then I did entrepreneurial stuff and jobs. And, you know, when the debt level was too much, I had to get a job in order to keep the family happy, to keep my wife happy. Yeah, so I've been online for a while. I kind of, now that I see where the internet is today and the kind of money that's generated from the internet and all the ideas, I'm like, why did I try to do affiliate sales of golf clubs in 1999? I could have done a ton of things. That would have been super great. Anyway, we all have those moments. I had created an SEO business and was doing quite well, and had actually moved my family to Africa for about a year and a half when Google decided to do one of their famous algorithm changes. I think it was called Penguin, and Penguin number 2, and it really took us out. Like, honestly, everything we were doing for SEO from that point on wasn't working anymore. I lost all my clients, and I had other businesses that I sold some shares. Anyway, I was looking for a business. I was looking to do something. I was building a university in Africa to teach entrepreneurship. I had left Africa, came back to Canada, like, things were going, and I didn't have any revenue. And I was just looking for a business. And then Dustin came with his little business I was just starting, and the numbers were going like this. And it's a really interesting hockey stick curve. And I love those curves. So I was like, man, I can really, really help you. What I saw Dustin do is to try to outsource, to try to find people to help him in different countries. And it wasn't working. And it wasn't working for a couple of reasons. And I had a lot of experience outsourcing, probably since 2003. 2004, I had started with the first people that worked for me. I've outsourced ever since, and found some really great secrets about how to create process documents, how to train people, how to manage people, but also how to hire the right people. And so Dustin and I started using these kind of techniques, and we hired, and we did things that we could have never done before. We were creating so much more work, so much more product, I could say, in a week than Dustin could have done in many months, just because we had so many people doing more and more work, and we did so much that a few of those really worked out. Like, we probably had, like, I don't know, maybe a 97% failure rate in what we tried to do, but the 3%, and we did so much, I'm talking hundreds and hundreds, that the 3% that actually worked was like making us over $1 million a year, and help us to build an amazing team of over 30 people before we sold the company.
I want to just inject something here, because this is something I see entrepreneurs say all the time. Oh, I have, you know, this much revenue. I want to be clear. We had like a 75 to 80% profit margin in that business. because of outsourcing. And so, you know,
You're right.
we were able to take home a lot of that, which was really nice. So I think Gregory's internet froze here for a second. Either that or he's just stonewalling me. But in any case, when we started that business, you know, of course there was no profit to begin with. Okay, Gregory's back. I was just saying, you know, when we started it, there was no profits to begin with, but very quickly we were able to take home a significant part of that. And even, I mean, reinvesting 25%, we were still reinvesting quite a lot of money, but our team was able to grow so quickly because of that. Just because our profit margins were so high, because, you know, we weren't paying the same salaries that other people were paying. I have a good friend who started a very similar company in a very similar space. And he hired local employees, and the rate of scaling has been a night and day difference, simply because I was able to hire people from a variety of different countries for a much lower rate. We were able to scale at 10 to 100x what he was able to scale to. You know, granted, his 4 or 5 people, you know, locally, they absorb 80% of his revenue, whereas our 30 people only absorb 25% of our revenue. And so there's a big disparity.
And he was competing exactly in the same industry. He sold his business. Do you know how many zeros he got?
He sold it for 5 figures.
5 figures, and we sold for mid to high 7 figures. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a difference, right? Like when you talk about scaling like a boss, like, and this is the reason why we picked this title for what we're doing. That's the reality. The profit margin came because on average, even though we were hiring developers, artists, we were developing like managers, like anything you can think about, our average payroll per month was less than $1,000 per person.
Yeah. And
hiring the same people in Canada was going to be at least 5 to 6 times more expensive per person. So that's the reality. So we were scaling faster. We had more staff. We could do more work. We could publish more. We could get more money. We could get more revenue. At the same time, our cost was a lot less. And therefore, our profit margin was a lot better, which allowed us to not only live well, provide for our families, and honestly, exit well. Like when you're going out and selling a business, Dustin, you know what they're looking at. They're looking at profits, and they're giving you a multiplier off your profit.
Totally.
They're not looking at your revenue line only. They're looking at how much is left after. And when we told these buyers that we were selling this business and that it was doing 75 to 80% profit, and that we had a team this big in place, ready, trained, everything, they were willing to give us a better multiplier for our business than if we had not. So that was really interesting.
And I want to actually do a whole podcast just on how to exit, how to plan to exit. In fact, we should probably do like a segment, planning your business for an exit, and then how to actually exit. Because we did some things there that really, I think, drove up our price that we received, that were pretty clever. But I don't want to go there now. Let me ask you a question, Gregory. If you could go back in time in your entrepreneurial journey and avoid one mistake, what was the biggest mistake? What would have it been, and what would you do now differently?
I think I would have tried more ideas. I kind of have a little bit of a regret of, I started online stuff right at the beginning of the internet. I mean, 1999, very few people did anything. And I kind of wished I would have been a bit more gutsy about some of the ideas that I think could have done really well. And I think it was just to just be more of a yes. I mean, there's just a limit of what you can do with time and money. I mean, I'm only one person. But what I know today is I know I can hire managers. I know I can hire developers. I can hire anyone. Like if I wanted to start an AI business, I could hire AI experts tomorrow and work on it. So to just go out and find the right people and do stuff that is even cutting edge, I think could be really worth it. I guess that's one of the major mistakes. The other mistake that I would say is at the beginning, my hiring philosophy was wrong. The first philosophy that I had for hiring is hire fast, fire faster. Hire 5, keep 2. You know, that kind of idea of like it's brute force hiring.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to get great people all the time. So, you know, hire 5 people for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, let 3 people go. And then at the end of the month, let 1 person go and you have 1 great person. And I've done that and it works. Honestly, it works, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, because you've got to train them, you've got to pay them.
Yeah.
I remember in our business when we realized we're like, wait, for every successful hire, it costs us 5 months of salary.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that's actually a huge cost. That's almost half a year of somebody that we could have more if we just hired the right person the first time.
Exactly. And another thing that I think we've learned is quality people make such a difference. Like if I look at some of the businesses I have today that I manage and how great they are, and actually they don't cost a lot more money than mediocre people that we had at the beginning when we hadn't learned a lot of lessons, right? They don't, I mean, okay, it's gone up a little bit with the years for some people, but it's not that more expensive to find amazing people. You were talking earlier about the drama of people that you've hired, you know, at the very beginning, right?
Yes.
Today, Dustin, I mean, you know the business we run. How much drama do we really go through?
Yeah, there's none. I mean, you know, and it's so interesting because I think about, like, a hindsight's always 2020. I think about all the ways I screwed up and I'm like, wow, the solutions weren't very hard, but I needed to get screwed in order to feel the pain, in order to be like, okay, I'm putting this in a contract. Okay, I'm doing this kind of question in my reference check. Okay, I'm doing this. And there's all these little things that you learn, you add them all up into a system and you're like, it's not that hard. The system's not much. It's certainly way easier than not having a system, you know, and dealing with the human drama, people that steal your code, that steal your ideas, that just never deliver their code, that, you know, everything you can imagine. And I really think when I look back at, you know, I said to somebody once, they said, well, how do you know when to hire? And I said, well, as long as you're eating, you should hire. For me, I don't even eat. I hire before I eat. But for other people, I get it. You need to feed your children. So, but like, that's it. Like, that's the threshold. It's not like, oh, now I've got excess. It's like, no, but the big but is only if you're hiring the right person. Because if you're hiring the wrong person, you're just wasting your money. Your wife's going to hate you. And your church is going to have to give you money for Christmas dinner, you know, like.
And you know what, there's a couple of things. I think when I think about what we've learned is, yes, we've learned that spending the time, the effort to hire great people. So spending the time before the hire, rather than spending the time training a bunch of people and having to fire people all the time, which is amazingly draining in our lives, right? Is worth it. The other thing I think we've learned is how to manage people. And sometimes I think that new entrepreneurs that have not had that much experience in hiring and managing people, they think that, oh, I'm just going to hire someone and all my problems are going to go away. Like if there's no other thing I'm going to need to do. No. It's not true. Like if you're going to build a fantastic team and they're going to work well, the people that are coming on board are not all going to be managers and they're all not going to be entrepreneurial styles. You're going to still need to be the entrepreneur and create a little bit of a management process to make sure that the people are doing the right thing at the right time in the right way. So I think there's a bit of that scaling. A company requires management and it requires leadership, and that's you. That's that's the role you need to keep, is the leadership and the management of the business. And then as you create process, I think with us, as we've created more managers, like our management team became a 5-people team.
Yeah.
Right. So 5 of the 30 people were managers, including me and Dustin. The 3 other managers had their team. So they would come back. We would meet with them every day. We knew what was happening. I mean, Dustin and I think about halfway through the business, I don't think we were working more than 4 hours a day, maybe sometimes less.
I remember this conversation with you, and we're like, if we work more, they can't keep up with us. You know, like we had to like step back and be like, you know what, we're only going to put in 4 hours and find something else to do, you know, because you overwhelm your team.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Dustin and I, we weren't doing technical stuff. Like we weren't coding or drawing anything or publishing anything or doing anything that created the value. We were not managing people as much, except managing the management team.
Yeah.
And so if we came up with 25 new ideas in the next 2 or 3 hours, the team can't handle that. It's going to take them 6 months to implement half of that, right? So at one point, I mean, Dustin, Dustin loves to travel, right? So
yeah, I mean,
to go to different countries and experience life.
I found a little tropical island and hung out on the beach with my really, really slow internet. And I'd get up at 4 a.m. to meet with my team and work until, 7 or 8. And then I was done,
And Dustin loves water. If you look at his shirt, you can see that. Is it
yeah, this
turtles,
is
right?
This is one of my Vanuatu shirts.
Yeah. He loves water. So next thing you know, we're having management meetings. Yeah, I'm on the side of a waterfall somewhere. And that was Dustin's life,
Yeah.
The
best management meeting I remember feeling so cool was I was holding on to one of those motorcycle taxis in Africa, weaving through traffic, and like my phone rings and I pick it up and I'm like having my management call like on the back of a 50-cent motorcycle taxi in West Africa, like darting in and out of traffic. So yeah, anyhow, it was pretty good fun. But I want to switch gears just a little bit to close. For entrepreneurs who are really just starting out and they're in the thick of things, and they're feeling stuck and they're feeling overwhelmed, what encouragement, what advice would you give them?
The first thing I would say is greatness in business doesn't happen as a one-man show. You need a team. Like look at anybody that's doing anything really great. No one is solo entrepreneuring it. You can't really succeed, especially in today's world where it's so digital. You can't succeed only on your own and actually create a 7, 8, 9-figure business just being a solo entrepreneur. So the team, building a team, having people leveraging other people's time and talent and heart and devotion and genius is a requirement of really succeeding. And so I would say that, like, I think a lot of people they hire a few people, it doesn't go well, they go like, oh, they can't do it as well as I can do it, I'm gonna keep doing it on my own, right? It's simpler that way. I know what I'm doing, I'm comfortable there. I would say, embrace a little bit of uncomfort, because at the beginning, it's not comfortable always to hire people. But if you really want to succeed and make a difference, and you know what, if you want to build a school in Africa and you want to have an orphanage and you want to build a house on a deserted island somewhere and be near the waterfall to have your management meeting, that kind of life deserves that you become a little bit uncomfortable at the beginning and learn to hire the right people and then manage them in the right way. And manage them in a way that you get their heart and not just their time.
Yeah.
And that is a key of it. Like, we have some very, very loyal people that have worked with us and keep working with us. I think I have someone that's working for me even today since 2007, right? and 2007, 2008, something like that. So what is that, 13 years?
And they followed you from business to business to business.
And I kept them too. There's some people, when you sell your company, you move them to another business before you put your company for sale. That's one of the things that we did. So we kept a few people, but they're family. Well, we love them, you know. I remember seeing this week, Dustin, you saw that, we saw the daughter of one of our contractors, and she gave birth within a few months after starting working for me. And now this girl was what, like 15 years old. Yeah, it was like, wow, there's the baby. She's not that tall, you know. It was really amazing. So going back to topic, Dustin, number one, you need to grow a team. You're going to have to learn things. You have to learn to be a manager. You have to learn to hire the right people. You have to know how to get them to do stuff out of genius and out of their hearts. It's important. Don't give up on the dream of doing something really amazing.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that surprised me so much was so much of business development switched from tactics and strategies into leadership and psychology and really guiding people. And me and Gregory are very different types of entrepreneurs, which is why we complement each other really well. As part of the university project, I got my master's in management and leadership. And it took a master's degree for me to understand that I'm not a manager. I probably will never be a manager. I'm not detail oriented. I have 1,000 ideas that I want to work on all simultaneously. I don't follow up very well. I have all of these things that could be considered deficiencies, but going through that process, as well as going through the process of building multiple businesses, I've learned I can hire people that complement me very well. You know, like they are that mirror image to what I need. And I complement them very well. I allow them to do what they're best at, and they allow me to do what I'm best at. And because of that, we all succeed together. And so for me, that was one of the biggest lessons was, you know, realizing that when you hire the right person and you have them as the interface between the entrepreneur and the business, everything goes better. Everything just, you know, goes way more smoothly. Yeah, anyhow, so that's my words of encouragement. Gregory, thanks so much for taking the time today. For any of you that are interested in learning more about how to scale your business, we're going to have a series of these podcasts where we're going to interview each other, but we're also going to interview other entrepreneurs. So you will get an inside look at not only the tactics that people are using, but also the psychology behind it. One of the upcoming episodes, one of our guests, he's a phenomenal person, and he said this quote, and I said, okay, I'm totally stealing that. And he said, you either need to scale through psychology or technology, meaning you're either going to scale your business using people or automation. And he does a little bit of both for us, and you'll see that episode coming up. But I think when you're building your business, you need to look at it and say, okay, is this something that a person needs to do? Is this something that software needs to do? And then is there a better person than me for the resources available to me that can do it? So that would be my advice. I'm going to close this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I would love to see comments of the questions you have, the biggest struggles you're having in your business right now scaling. If you're stuck at 5 figures or you're stuck at 6 figures and you're trying to get to 7 or 8 or 9, I want to hear, you know, this is the wall I'm hitting, because then we can address those things directly. Once again, Gregory, thanks for your time, and everybody else, like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you on the next episode.